Alien girl from a noble house asked the human for directions, but his answer changed her path. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to our main character. The service gate hummed with a low electric buzz as Eli Warren slid out from beneath a cargo hauler, grease streaking his forearms and the smell of hot metal hanging in the dry midday air. Heat radiated off the transit deck, warping the light above the shimmering lanes. On the far side, sleek levitating carriages drifted past, polished, silent, unmistakably noble. Eli wiped his hands on an old rag tucked in his belt, the fabric already stiff from months of repairs on machines that never stayed fixed long enough. He pushed blonde hair off his forehead and squinted toward the sunlit walkway, half expecting another breakdown call from someone who didn't want to pay full price. Instead, a soft chime rang, a noble carriage settling onto the deck like a silver feather. Its panels unfurled in smooth arcs, releasing a faint cool mist. From within stepped a young woman, her skin a pale blue shimmer as if moonlight lived beneath the surface. Her silver-lined cloak caught the wind, rippling like water over stone. She glanced around, eyes sharp, searching. Then her gaze landed on him. She walked closer, each step measured, as though the ground itself should be grateful she touched it. When she stopped before him, the air seemed to shift, quiet, expectant. "Human," she said, her voice calm but distant. "I require directions to the royal gate. Point me there." Eli blinked, surprised she'd even speak to him directly. Her tone carried the weight of someone used to obedience. He followed her gesture toward the intersection behind him, where two maintenance signs blinked red in warning. A vibration trembled through the deck plates, subtle, but enough to make him frown. He felt these platforms the way some felt weather shifts. Something was off. "Well," he said, brushing dust off his hands, "you could go that way. But you shouldn't." Her expression tightened, confusion wrapped in offense. The breeze caught a strand of her silver blue hair, brushing it across her cheek like the stroke of a painter's brush. "Shouldn't," she repeated. "That path leads directly to the royal gate. Your readings must be incorrect." Eli stepped aside so she could see the buckled support struts beneath the walkway. Even from a distance, the metal's slight sway revealed stress under the heat. "There's a maintenance crew due any minute," he said. "Deck's unstable. Might hold. Might not. I'd take the lower ramp if I were you." She stared at him, not at the hazard, not at the signs, but at him, as though the idea of a human giving caution to a noble-born woman disturbed the natural order of things. Her eyes softened a fraction, the first break in her polished mask. "You're certain?" she asked quietly. Eli nodded. "Safer routes 2 levels down. I can show you if you want." For a heartbeat, sunlight glanced off her eyes, turning them almost silver. She looked toward the dangerous path again, then back at the simple mechanic who had stopped his day to give her an answer that held no benefit for him at all. Something in her posture eased, just slightly. "Very well," she murmured. "Lead the way." And just like that, a shift began, small, almost invisible, like the first subtle turn of a compass before a journey no one expected. The lower ramp smelled faintly of coolant and warm circuitry as Eli guided Saris down the gently sloping walkway. The overhead lamps flickered in soft pulses, reflecting off her silver blue cloak and scattering cold light across the steel walls. She moved with practiced elegance, her steps precise despite the unfamiliar surroundings. But he noticed the way her eyes darted between warning signs and access hatches, as if the station's working class level was another world entirely. Eli slowed his pace without thinking. He had walked these ramps since he was 17, fixing whatever broke before someone complained. He knew where the floor panels dipped, where the temperature changed when a vent was clogged, even where the hum of the power conduits shifted tones. To him, this place breathed like an old friend. To her, it was clearly foreign territory. "Does the lower ramp always feel this warm?" Saris asked, lifting her cloak slightly as a draft swept upward. Her voice carried curiosity, now softened from earlier frost. "Heat from the stabilizer cores," Eli answered. The upper deck stays cool because the nobles want it that way. Down here, we get the real temperature of the structure. She absorbed that, glancing at the glowing conduit lines trailing along the wall. I did not realize the temperature varied. Our carriages adjust automatically, so I never felt the difference. Eli smiled faintly. Down here, we notice everything. For a moment, she studied him as though the idea of noticing everything held more meaning than he intended. They continued forward, passing a maintenance drone that chirped and wheeled by. Sarah stepped aside quickly, surprised at how close it came. Eli steadied her elbow without thinking, his hand light, respectful, ready to pull away. She looked down at his hand, not offended, only surprised that anyone would think she needed steadying. Thank you, she said quietly. He released her gently. It is nothing. It is not nothing, she replied, her tone thoughtful. Where I come from, few ever walk beside me. They walk behind, or ahead, not next to. He shrugged, adjusting the strap of his tool bag. I just figured you would prefer to avoid getting run over by a drone. The hint of a smile curved her lips, small but genuine. They reached a platform overlooking the lower lanes. Through the rails, Saris watched streams of travelers weaving between cargo lifts and shuttle docks. The air here carried the scent of ozone and engine coolant, but it also carried laughter, chatter, and the hum of real life. It is strange, she murmured. I have traveled across systems, yet I have never walked a place like this. Eli leaned on the rail beside her, giving her space. Most nobles do not, he said simply. But it is not a bad place. Just different. She traced a finger along the metal railing, feeling its worn texture. Different, she repeated softly, as if tasting the word for the first time. A distant alarm pinged, soft and polite, announcing the opening of the safe route corridor ahead. Eli nodded toward it. Your gate is straight through there. Smooth path, reinforced floor, no surprises. Saris did not move immediately. Instead, she looked at him again, a quiet question in her eyes. Eli Warren, she said, speaking his name carefully. Why did you choose to help me? You could have let me take the upper walkway without saying anything. His answer came without hesitation. Because you deserve the truth. That is all. The simplicity of it made her breath hitch. She held his gaze for a long, calm moment, the noise of the station fading into a gentle hum around them. Then she nodded, almost to herself, as if committing something unseen to memory. I am beginning to understand, she whispered, more to the air than to him. And together, they took the final steps toward the safe corridor, their footsteps falling into an easy rhythm neither had expected. The safe route corridor opened with a gentle hiss, releasing a cool draft that carried the faint scent of filtered air and polished stone. Saris paused at the threshold, her silver blue cloak shifting around her like a ripple of moonlit water. Beyond the archway, the lighting softened into a warmer glow, designed for dignitaries and ambassadors, far from the raw machinery of the lower decks. Eli remained a step behind her, hands resting at his sides, tool bag slung over one shoulder. He looked completely out of place against the pristine corridor, as if the station had drawn a line between worlds and he stood firmly on the humble side of it. Saris glanced back at him, her expression composed yet touched with something newly fragile. This passage leads directly to the royal gate, she said quietly, as though repeating instructions to anchor herself. Eli nodded. You will be there in a minute or two. She took a step forward, then another, the soft tap of her boots echoing off polished tiles. But after only a few paces, she slowed again, turning her head just enough for her voice to reach him. Eli, she said, as if testing how his name felt when spoken without formality. Would you walk with me a little longer? Only until the next bend. He blinked, unsure why she would want that, yet something in her tone held no command, only a sincere request. If that is what you want, he said. Saris offered a faint nod, almost relieved, and matched her stride to his as they continued through the corridor. The walls shimmered with soft refractions of gold and pale blue, casting a warm halo around her features. The further they walked, the quieter the world became, the hum of engines fading behind insulated panels. In the stillness, Sarah spoke again, barely above a whisper. Back there on the ramp, when you warned me about the danger, it surprised me more than I expected. Eli glanced sideways at her. Surprised you how? She brushed a silver strand of hair behind her ear, her her fingers graceful and deliberate. Most people do not tell someone at my station what they truly think. They tell me what they believe I want to hear, or what benefits them. Eli let that settle before answering. I did not want anything from you. I just wanted you safe. Her steps slowed. She stopped in the center of the corridor where a skylight overhead drew down a narrow beam of white light. The glow wrapped her in a soft brilliance, making her eyes appear almost metallic, like liquid silver catching the sun. She turned to face him fully. That is exactly why it matters, she said. The simplicity of her words held a quiet weight. Eli shifted his stance, unsure what to do with the sudden closeness. I did not do anything special, he murmured. You helped me without expectation, she replied. That is special. She looked down briefly, gathering her cloak around her shoulders as though steadying herself. Eli, I must admit something. When I first approached you, I assumed, well, she hesitated, searching for a gentler word. I assumed you were beneath notice. Eli did not flinch. He had heard worse. But her eyes lifted quickly, earnest and apologetic. I was wrong. You walked this station with understanding and instinct I do not possess. You saw what I could not. You protected me without knowing my name. A silence stretched between them, comfortable and fragile all at once. Then she breathed out softly. You changed the path I would have taken. Eli rubbed the back of his neck, unsure how to answer something so sincere. Anyone would have done the same, he said. She gave a small, knowing smile. No, not anyone. Ahead, the corridor bent sharply toward the royal gate, its distant arch glowing like a promise of duty and expectation. Saris glanced toward it, then back at him, as if measuring the remaining steps before their worlds separated again. Walk with me a little further, she asked softly. And Eli, without thinking, stepped forward beside her, their footsteps echoing in quiet unison as they moved toward the place where their paths would soon diverge, though neither seemed ready to name it. The gentle curve of the corridor guided them toward a set of tall archways, each lined with soft gold light that shimmered against the polished floor. The closer they came, the more the air seemed to shift, growing quieter, more restrained, as if the station itself recognized the threshold of a noble domain. Eli kept an easy pace beside Saris, hands loose at his sides, careful not to intrude, and yet unable to ignore the feeling that something important was unfolding in the calm space between their steps. Saris walked with her gaze forward, but her attention remained with him, the subtle tilt of her head revealing she was listening even when he said nothing. Her voice finally broke the silence, smooth and reflective, like a thought she had carried for miles. My family's gate will be just ahead, she said. I should prepare myself. Eli nodded lightly. Big reception? Always, she replied with a soft, knowing breath. Nobles do not arrive quietly, even when we wish to. She lifted her chin as though bracing for a weight she had worn since childhood. The corridor widened into a small antechamber filled with warm overhead lights and the faint scent of polished stone and imported cedar. A few travelers passed by in a polite hush, offering respectful nods to Saris as they recognized her crest, embossed subtly along the trim of her cloak. Eli stepped aside automatically, unsure whether he still belonged at her shoulder. But Saris paused, turning toward him before he could create distance. Eli, she said, her voice gentle yet steady. I would appreciate it if you remained here for a moment. He blinked. Are you certain? I do not want to get in the way. A hint of something bright touched her eyes, not amusement exactly, but appreciation. You have not been in the way at any point today, she replied. Quite the opposite. She approached the marble seating ledge along the wall and rested her hands on its cool surface, taking a moment to gather her composure. Eli waited nearby, unsure of what she needed but willing to stand quietly until she chose to speak again. After a breath, she lifted her gaze. Earlier, she began. When you steadied me on the ramp, I realized something. I realized how sheltered I have been, not only from danger, but from anything real. Eli shook his head lightly. You handled everything just fine. Anyone can feel unfamiliar with a place they have not walked before. She studied him for a moment, as if searching for the right way to express what had been growing inside her since their first exchange. That is just it, she said softly. I have spent years walking only the paths chosen for me. Smooth floors, guarded halls, polished doors. And then today, A single moment on an uneven deck showed me how little I understand about the world beyond my family's walls. Eli leaned a shoulder against the nearby column, his expression thoughtful. Everyone has a first day seeing how things really work, he said. No shame in that. What matters is what you choose to do next. Saris breathed out, her shoulders easing. Your way of seeing the world, it is very grounded. You learn a lot fixing things that break, Eli replied. Machines, ramps, sometimes even people's assumptions. Her eyes softened at that. The echo of footsteps drifted down the corridor as a pair of noble attendants approached from the far end, their silhouettes framed by the golden light of the royal gate. Saris watched them for a moment, then looked back at Eli with quiet resolve. My attendants will reach us soon, she said. And when they do, I must step back into the person they expect. Eli nodded once. I understand. She hesitated, then added, but before they arrive, I wanted you to know that today has shown me something important. Something I did not realize I needed. Her voice lowered, steady and sincere. Perspective, honesty, a moment of being treated not as a title, but as a person. Eli met her gaze, surprised by the vulnerability in her tone. Saris, you are a person, he said simply. A title does not change that. For a heartbeat, her expression softened into something almost luminous. Then the distant footsteps grew clearer. She straightened, lifting her chin in quiet preparation. Walk with me to the gate, she said. Just until they reach us. Eli stepped forward without hesitation, falling into easy rhythm beside her as the golden archway drew near, each of them aware that the steps they shared in that calm, glowing space were carrying them toward a moment neither was quite ready to let pass. The attendants approached with smooth, measured strides, their robes trailing faint lines of light across the polished floor as they neared the royal gate. Saris's posture shifted almost imperceptibly, the quiet readiness of someone slipping back into a role she had been trained to embody since childhood. Yet her eyes stayed on Eli, steady and unguarded, as if she was unwilling to let the moment transition before she was ready. The warm glow from the overhead fixtures softened the edges of her silver-blue features, casting a gentle light across her expression. There is something I wish to say before they reach us, she murmured. Eli slowed his steps slightly, giving her space to continue. Go ahead. She held his gaze, her voice barely above a whisper. When I walk through that gate, everything changes. The expectations, the rules, the traditions, they all return the moment I cross that threshold. Eli nodded, understanding more than she expected. That is your world, he said. I get it. But that world, she continued, rarely allows a moment like this. A moment where someone speaks honestly to me. A moment where someone is not trying to impress me or gain something. She paused, as if choosing her next words carefully. Today, you gave me something that I have not felt in a very long time. Eli tilted his head slightly. What is that? A sense of choice, she replied. The simplicity of it struck deeper than he anticipated. She stepped forward, only a pace, but enough that the overhead skylight framed her like a portrait in motion. Eli, she said gently, I need you to understand how unusual this is. Noble families do not often hear the word no. We do not often hear truth. And I think, she drew a slow breath. I think I needed to hear it. He considered her words, shifting his weight slightly. Truth is easier than pretending, he said, even when it is uncomfortable. A faint smile touched her lips. Especially then. The attendants were now close enough that their footsteps formed a soft rhythm against the marble floor. Saris's gaze flicked toward them, but she did not fully turn away. Instead, she stepped closer to Eli, her cloak brushing lightly against his arm. Before they reach us, she said, her tone warm yet hesitant. Tell me something honestly. Eli nodded once. I can do that. She studied him, her silver-blue eyes, reflecting the golden light around them. If you had not warned me earlier, she asked, if I had walked the upper ramp and nothing had happened, would you still have said something? Or was it only because you saw danger? Eli did not hesitate. I would have said something anyway, he answered. Because you deserved the truth whether the danger was immediate or not. Her breath caught, soft and quiet. I thought so, she whispered. One of the attendants called her name politely, breaking the stillness. Saris straightened, the shift subtle but unmistakable. The noble daughter returning. The crest-bearer. The figure of title and duty. Yet something inside her had undeniably changed. She looked at Eli one last time, her voice low but steady. When I step forward, things will be different. But I do not want to forget this walk, or the way you spoke to me today. Eli offered a small, genuine nod. You will not forget, he said. Not if it mattered. Her expression softened, touched with sincerity. It did. The attendants reached her side, bowing with formal respect. Saris lifted her chin, preparing to move with them. But before she turned fully, she spoke one more quiet truth, just loud enough for him to hear. Walk with me for these last few steps, she said. Please. And so they moved together toward the glowing arch of the royal gate, side by side, neither rushing the moment that would inevitably pull their paths apart. The attendants formed a respectful half-circle as Saris approached the royal gate, their robes shimmering softly under the golden fixtures. The archway ahead glowed with a warm light that traced along its carved patterns, each symbol echoing centuries of noble tradition. Eli remained at her side just as she had asked, his steady footsteps contrasting with the delicate precision of hers. For a moment, the station felt quieter, as if the very air understood that this final stretch carried a weight neither of them fully named. One attendant, a tall figure with pale, silver markings along her cheeks, bowed deeply. Lady Saris, your escort is ready. Your family awaits your arrival. Saris's expression held its noble composure, yet her eyes flickered briefly toward Eli before she responded. I will proceed shortly. The attendant noticed the glance, her attention shifting between the two with polite interest. And may I inquire who accompanies you? Saris inhaled softly. Eli prepared to step back, assuming this was his moment to fade into the background. Before he could, Saris spoke with quiet firmness. He is someone who offered assistance when I required it. Her tone carried no embellishment, but the truth beneath it was unmistakable. Eli gave a small nod, acknowledging both her words and the boundaries of her world. The attendant bowed again, accepting her answer without question, and stepped aside. The pathway ahead brightened as the gate's inner lights adjusted to Saris's presence. She took a single step forward, then paused, turning slightly back toward Eli. This is the part, she murmured, where I am expected to walk forward alone. Eli held her gaze, calm and grounded. Then I guess this is where I stop. But she did not move immediately. Instead, she let her eyes wander over his face, as if committing the moment to memory. Eli, she began, her voice quieter than before. In my world, there is a great deal of ceremony. It can make simple things feel complicated. She paused, her fingers brushing the edge of her cloak. Yet you spoke to me today with a clarity I have rarely heard. You did not treat me as a title or as an emblem. You treated me as someone who could make a decision. Eli shrugged gently. Everyone should get that chance. Yes, she whispered, but not everyone receives it. Her attendants waited patiently, heads bowed, giving her space to finish what she wished to say. The lights from the gate cast a soft halo along her shoulders, making her appear both regal and startlingly human in her vulnerability. She stepped closer, only a fraction, but enough that her words reached him in a low, earnest tone. Before I cross that threshold, I want to ask you one question, she said. Eli nodded once. Ask anything. Do you believe I can choose my own path? Saris said, even if it goes against the one laid out for me. Eli did not hesitate. Yes, I do. Anyone can choose differently the moment they decide to. A slow breath escaped her, like a quiet release of something held for too long. Then perhaps today was not only about finding the correct route, she murmured. Perhaps it was also about finding the courage to walk it. The lights along the gate pulsed softly, signaling that the passage was ready for her. Saris straightened, the noble posture sliding gracefully into place, yet the softness in her eyes remained unchanged. Thank you, Eli, she said, her voice warm. You may not realize it, but you have shown me more than directions. He gave a simple smile, small and steady. Take care of yourself, Saris. She lingered for the briefest moment, then turned toward the glowing archway. As she stepped forward, the light embraced her, her silhouette framed in gold, and Eli watched quietly as she moved into the world that awaited her, carrying something new and unspoken that she had not possessed before the day began. The golden light of the royal gate faded the moment Saris stepped through, its glow dissolving into a quieter, cooler atmosphere reserved for noble arrivals. The walls here were lined with soft silver panels, humming with a gentle resonance that matched the crest of her family. Saris paused just inside the threshold, her attendants moving ahead to announce her presence. Yet she did not follow immediately. Instead, she looked back once, through the narrow sliver where the gate had not fully sealed. Eli had already begun to turn toward the lower ramps, his tool bag shifting against his shoulder as he walked away at an unhurried pace. Something in her chest tightened, unexpected and unfamiliar. She had not realized how quickly his presence had become steadying. The gate closed with a soft chime, and the moment vanished behind her. The corridor ahead stretched like a ceremonial path, bathed in muted white light. At the far end, another attendant approached, bowing respectfully. "Lady Saris, your family requests your presence in the reception hall. They were concerned when your carriage arrived without warning." Saris lifted her chin. "Inform them that I chose to walk part of the route." The attendant blinked, clearly surprised. "Walk, my lady? Through the lower corridors?" "Yes," Saris answered, her tone steady. "There is value in seeing more than polished floors." The attendant offered no argument, though curiosity flickered in her expression as she guided Saris forward. As they moved deeper into the noble wing, Saris's thoughts drifted back to the mechanic with grease on his forearms and a calm certainty in his voice. The simplicity of his honesty lingered like a soft echo. No one in her world spoke so plainly. No one offered truth without expecting something in return, and no one had looked at her not as a symbol, but as a person who could choose her own direction. She stepped into the reception hall, where tall crystalline windows refracted afternoon light across the room in a cascade of pale blue and gold. Her mother and two advisors waited near the center, their expressions a mixture of relief and poised concern. "Saris," her mother said, taking a step forward, "your carriage reported a deviation from route. Is everything well?" Saris offered a graceful nod. "I am well. I asked for directions from someone familiar with the station. He advised a safer route." One advisor frowned slightly. "Someone? A station officer?" "A mechanic," Saris replied. The advisor hesitated. "A mechanic? My lady, you entrusted movement to someone outside the noble registry." Her mother raised a cautioning hand, but her tone remained gentle. "Saris, what prompted you to do so?" Saris considered her answer, choosing honesty over expectation. "He saw a danger I did not, and he spoke plainly, without considering my title first." Her mother's eyes searched hers. "And this mattered to you?" "Yes," Saris said quietly. "More than I expected." A soft silence followed, broken only by the distant hum of the station's core. Her mother studied her face, then nodded with a knowing calm. "Sometimes wisdom comes from places we are not taught to look." Saris breathed out slowly, grateful for the understanding. "Mother," she asked, "may I walk the station freely in the coming days? There is more I wish to learn." The advisors exchanged startled glances, but her mother's expression softened. "If that is the path you feel called to explore, then yes. With appropriate escort, of course." "Thank you," Saris replied, though her thoughts drifted not to escorts or formalities, but to a humble mechanic who had spoken truth to her without hesitation. In another wing of the station, Eli returned to his work bay, unaware of the quiet ripple his honesty had sent through the life of someone born into marble halls and inherited expectations. Saris stood tall in the noble hall, but her thoughts carried her somewhere else entirely, back to the lower ramp, where a simple answer had changed more than just her direction. It had changed her sense of possibility. The following morning arrived with a gentle shift in the station's rhythm, a soft hum beneath the metallic corridors. That signaled the start of a new cycle. Far below the noble halls, Eli stepped out of his work bay, rolling his shoulders as he surveyed the tasks waiting for him. A cargo hauler with a flickering stabilizer, a power junction overdue for calibration, and a service panel that someone had kicked shut instead of securing properly. Another ordinary morning. He reached for his toolkit when a soft chime echoed across the lower deck. Not the sharp alert of malfunction, but a melodic tone reserved for authorized personnel entering from upper levels. Eli turned, expecting a station officer. Instead, he saw Saris. She appeared at the base of the ramp with a measured grace, her silver-blue cloak flowing behind her in quiet waves. Without the entourage, without ceremony, she looked different. Not less noble, but more real. Her eyes searched the deck until they found him, and something in her expression eased as if she had been hoping he was exactly where he usually stood. She approached slowly, her steps light against the industrial flooring. "Eli Warren," she said, her voice carrying warmth beneath its formal tone. "It seems fortune has allowed our paths to cross again." Eli blinked, still holding a wrench in one hand. "Saris? I did not expect to see you down here." "That makes two of us," she replied, lifting a faint smile. "But I asked for permission to walk the station. I wanted to understand the places most nobles never see." Eli rested his wrench against his shoulder. "And you chose to start here?" She looked around, taking in the glow of the power lines, the steady movement of drones, and the workers navigating their morning tasks. "This is where I first learned something meaningful yesterday," she said. It felt right to return. Eli sensed sincerity in her words, steady and unembellished. "Well," he said, "it is not much, but it is honest." Sarah stepped closer, studying the hauler he had been preparing to fix. "What is wrong with this machine?" she asked. "It is listing slightly to the left." Eli raised an eyebrow. "You noticed that?" "It is subtle," she replied. "But once you look directly at it, the imbalance becomes clear." Eli knelt beside the hauler, motioning for her to join him. She hesitated only briefly before lowering herself beside him, the hem of her cloak gathering neatly at her side. He pointed to the stabilizer panel. "This is where the issue starts. Heat expansion warps the housing, so it throws the balance off." Saris leaned closer, observing the faint ripple along the metal. "I see it now." She looked almost proud of the discovery, as though recognizing a flaw in machinery carried the same satisfaction as identifying a rare gemstone. "You learn things quickly," Eli said. "Or perhaps I was simply never taught to notice," she replied thoughtfully. A soft breeze drifted through the deck as a transport passed overhead, stirring a loose strand of her silver-blue hair. She brushed it back absently, her focus still on the hauler. Then she spoke again, quieter this time. "Yesterday, you said anyone can choose differently the moment they decide to." Eli nodded. "I remember." Saris lifted her gaze to him, her eyes reflecting the warm glow of the deck lights. "I made a choice today," she said. "To return here. To learn something new. To consider a path no one planned for me." Eli did not speak immediately. The steady hum of the station filled the silence, grounding the moment. Finally, he set the wrench aside. "Then you are already walking that path," he said. The faintest breath escaped her, not a sigh, but something closer to relief. "Eli," she said softly, "may I walk with you today? Not as a noble, not as a title, but simply as myself." His answer came with quiet certainty. "Yes, Saris, you can." And as the station's lights shifted to full brightness, they moved side by side into the day, the mechanic and the noble daughter crossing a boundary neither had expected, drawn forward by a choice she had finally claimed as her own. The station's lower deck settled into its familiar rhythm as the morning cycle stretched into early afternoon. A warm hum pulsed beneath the metal flooring, joined by the steady clatter of tools, the soft whir of service drones, and the distant echo of public announcements drifting down from upper levels. Eli walked beside Saris at an easy pace, guiding her through the maze of support corridors and maintenance platforms, never rushing, never presenting the path as more complicated than it needed to be. Saris absorbed everything with a quiet attentiveness, her eyes reflecting the glow of conduit lights as she took in each detail of a world she had only glimpsed from afar. It felt strange to her, in the gentlest way, to walk without ceremony, to ask questions freely, to listen without the expectation of answering perfectly. She paused near a large ventilation window that overlooked the heart of the station. From here, the vast expanse of transit lanes, cargo lifts, and bustling walkways stretched beneath them like an intricate living map. "I have walked grand halls," she murmured, her voice soft with wonder. "But I did not know the station looked like this from anywhere but the noble galleries." Eli leaned one arm on the railing, watching her take in the view. "The galleries show everything from a distance," he said. "Down here, you can see how things really move." Saris nodded, her silver-blue features illuminated by the woven lights of the deck. "It feels more honest," she said. "Less filtered." They lingered there for a moment before continuing. As they approached a small service hub, a pair of engineers passed by, offering Eli a friendly nod. Their eyes drifted to Saris in brief surprise. but she met their expressions with a calm dignity, neither loftier nor smaller than the moment required. Eli noticed. So did she. They did not bow, Saris observed quietly. Eli gave a gentle shrug. They do not bow to me either. She smiled faintly. It is refreshing. A maintenance drone rolled toward them, chirping a polite request for access to the hub door. Saris stepped aside smoothly, navigating its path with ease this time. Eli caught her proud glance. You are getting good at this, he said. I am learning, she replied. Fast, he added. By choice, she finished. They reached a quiet alcove where the hum of machinery softened into a steady, comforting thrum. It was here that Saris stopped, turning to face Eli fully. Her expression held none of the guarded reserve she had worn the day before. Instead, it was open, steady, and sincere. Eli, she began, there is something I have realized today. He waited, giving her the space she needed. Walking this place with you has shown me something important. My world is shaped by expectation. Yours is shaped by understanding. And I believe both are paths worth knowing. Eli listened closely as she continued. Yesterday, I asked if you believed I could choose my own direction. Today, I believe it as well. She stepped closer, her cloak brushing gently against the quiet air around them. But I also understand that choosing a path does not mean abandoning every piece of who I am. It means choosing what matters and carrying it with intention. Her gaze softened. You helped me see that. Eli's voice stayed low, warm. All I did was tell the truth. Sometimes, she replied, truth is the rarest gift. A soft chime echoed through the corridor, signaling the approach of a courier. A small hover unit glided toward Saris, bearing a message rod marked with her family's crest. It hovered politely until she accepted it. She read the brief display silently before lifting her eyes to Eli. They expect me at a council preparation this evening. Eli nodded. Duty calls. It does, she agreed. But this time, I walked toward it differently. She held his gaze, a quiet gratitude settling between them like a gentle weight. Thank you, Eli Warren, for giving me the kind of direction I did not know I needed. He smiled, subtle and sincere. Anytime, Saris. She hesitated only a heartbeat before turning toward the lift that would return her to the noble halls. When the door slid open, she stepped inside, but looked back once more. Her final words reached him just as the lift began to rise. The stars may chart a path, she said softly. But today I learned the heart may choose another. The doors closed, leaving Eli in the warm hum of the lower deck, the faint shimmer of her presence lingering like a quiet echo in the air. And for Saris, as she ascended toward the life waiting for her, the station lights reflected in her eyes, soft, warm, and unmistakably human in their glow.